Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the African Village Woman Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Yokiam Dabale. It's a pleasure to be here. Sanukuduka, meaning greetings to all of you for being here. For the new folks that are joining me today, the African Village Woman Podcast simply it's a podcast that centers African village women, and I do that by telling stories, discussing research, and highlighting our experiences from an Afrocentric perspective. And so our lifestyle analysis from an Afrocentric perspective. And I also make connections with African or people of African descent in the diaspora and also on the African continent. So this is a very Pan-African podcast. Okay. For today's podcast, I'm going to dedicate it to those ancestors that we don't know, that I don't know, who have paved the way for me. You understand? So they are ancestors. So ancestors in the African context are venerated, no worship. But then again, there are some scholars that might say, well, it's worship. It depends how you use the term. But nonetheless, I'm using the term venerated or veneration. So I'm honoring, venerating African ancestors, especially villagers who have played a huge role, men and women who played a big role in shaping Africa, and they most times they are ignored, unacknowledged. And I am dedicating this today's episode to them for their labor of love that has often been ignored. And I am one of the few, I would say, who respect those contributions, and it's a pleasure to be here. Okay, so for today's episode, the topic is, do African village women need help? So after you probably, some of you are probably, folks who have joined mission trips or send money to some African village to help the women because they're suffering, they can't get running water. And with all of that, right? The question that I just asked, right? Do African village women need help? With all the help examples that I just highlighted, people send money, some for people send money for maybe school fees for children, etc., etc. I'm saying that actually African village women do not need help. What do I mean by that? Okay, this position, there are people within the village, even in my own community, who will say that, Yokiam, but if I'm gonna make you back, that means you're wrong. Yokiam, you're wrong for saying that village women do not need help. Why? Because those people often are the ones that are beneficiaries of dash, are beneficiary of help. So whenever they need something, they go to someone and ask for help. Give me some money. I want to solve a problem. And they keep going, doing it decades after decades. You're often hand up begging somebody. So it has become part of who you are. It has become a culture for you. So for you, it's normal to ask for help if you need help. But I'm looking at it from a different angle. Okay, I'm looking from the angle of African village women do not need help. Here are the reasons why. I'm saying handouts. So when someone needs an urgent help, you can help. But if you want structural change, if we want something to change from the ground up, an example to this I'll give you is I have a scar here. Okay, you can't see it, but it's there. Okay, when I got hurt, what I did was, as a kid, I was hiding it from my parents. I put a band-aid around it so they didn't see it for a very long time. As a result, not seeing it means that it has not been cared for properly, hence the reason why I have this scar on my arm. In the same way with people struggling, when we have issues, when there are problems within the village community, what needs to be addressed, we address it. In most cases, most people who have some means, they will just throw money at it, right? It just address the surface level of the issue, but the underlying problem is not being solved. So that's why I said no. African village women do not need help. What is needed in rural communities or in African villages, especially the one I've studied, is that we need infrastructural change, okay? Or more so, we need infrastructure, okay? So what are the ways? So I'll highlight a couple of things that I think that could be helpful in solving issues in Africa. That is, if we want true liberation for African people, especially women, African village women, if we want things to change so that African women, African village women, by the way, every time I say Africa, unless I qualify, I mean African village women, okay? So African village women, in order for things to change for us, for those of you who are new here, when I say us, I come from a village in northern Nigeria, so that's why I'm saying us, okay? So African village women need things in place, infrastructure that would help better their lives, not hand out. Why? Because African village women are not dummies. It's not as if they don't know what they're doing. Often you hear, "Oh, we're gonna go help them do this. We're gonna go help them, give them some, teach them, train them how to sew, or train them, give them some skills, life skills." I've just seen, in fact, recently article about that from an initiative by Nigeria in collaboration with the United Nations, things like that. And you hear this decades upon decades, nothing changes. And as a researcher and also a village woman, who spend a lot of time thinking about this, and I've been in that space. We need a number of things, and handouts are not one of those. Because African women, one, they need to be respected as human beings with brains, human beings who can make decisions on their own. Okay? They're not just a project. I've mentioned this in one of my earlier episode. So one, respect as human beings who know what they're doing. And what is missing is not because they're not smart. It's because they have been ignored. It's because their communities have been ignored, as I mentioned in one of my earlier episodes. Okay, so I'll make a brief list as to what is needed, not handouts, not help. Okay, so the first thing is mutual respect, right? Respect African village women, that they're human beings with brains and they know what's good for them and their children and their community and for themselves. As individuals and members of the community, as individuals and members of the community and nation and part of the global family. Okay, and the second thing is, besides respect, we need things in place. So the environment needs to be enabling. Enabling environment is very important because remember, they're smart. They know what's good for them. So enabling environment, what does that look like? What should it look like? Enabling environment is better road. So better road in rural northern Nigeria or in some rural community in Mozambique for village women will be helpful to them because they've been living in that community for decades, struggling and trying to survive on their own post-colonial Africa. So it's not as if they don't know what they're doing. They do. But it's just that post-colonial Africa, especially in the place where I come from and also based on my research, the roads are bad. So better road. What does this even mean, better road? Well, you have better road, and since a lot of these women are farmers, what is going to happen is when you have better road, they're going to be able to what? Transport their goods or travel to neighboring cities or market to sell their goods. And they will be able, especially with the community that I study, because of the poor road, they go to the nearest farm that they can, nearest market that they can find, so they can sell their produce, and they usually sell it cheaply. When, for example, some produce business people, they will come, for example, from southern Nigeria or eastern Nigeria, right, or central Nigeria. They come to our region in northern Nigeria, get our produce because we have a lot of, we grow. We are farmers. Most of the population are farmers. Buy our produce cheap, very cheap. Take it, for example, to Middle Belt Nigeria, for example, like Jos. Or some would take it as far as Abuja, or some would take it to Lagos, etc., and sell it for more. But they will go to those, because we have a market day where every week. So people, when people do, after harvesting and people are selling their products, they produce, they go there, buy them cheaply, and then take it to other parts of Nigeria and sell them and sell it very expensive, while they purchase it from the rural women very cheap. And this cycle continues for decades. And part of it is the women, as one of the things they shared with me, is that we would actually be able, if we have better roads, they say, then we'll be able to even take our produce, right, from our village and take it far away collectively and sell it and make a lot of money. Okay? Or sometimes, in fact, even transporting their produce from the village to the nearest farm pardon me, to the nearest market is super expensive. So they lose a lot of money for something they've worked on for months, because farming is not child's play. It's a lot of work. And they do a lot of this manually. So with their hands, even peeling peanuts, granite, they peel it with their hands. One day I will show you here how we do things in the village. So it's a lot of work. It's not child's play that some people think that, rural women don't have the skills, or they don't have the sense. Have the sense, is just there's no enabling environment for them. And the second thing is hospitals. They need better hospitals so that they can take care of themselves, especially hospitals close by where they can go if they have an emergency. So there will be less, because Nigeria has the highest, for example, where I come from, Nigeria has the highest, one of the highest, death rate in terms of giving birth. Okay. For those of you who are in America, you should you might want to, you can look at it through the lens of African American women's experience, because they're a marginalized population. African American women die at a higher rate compared to other racial groups in the United States when they're giving birth. That is similar to what's happening to the marginalized community, especially rural village women in Africa, and also in Nigeria. Okay, so better hospitals and care, because I also know that when women go to hospitals to give birth, after struggling, village women, after struggling to get to a faraway hospital, when they get there, the hospitals are not caring to them, because they poor, they're poor women, and on top of that, they get because they're poor, they get abused. So giving birth, can you imagine giving birth and you're being abused by your caretaker? Okay. And then the other example is university. So better university. So because village women are not individualistic, they see themselves through the part of the collective, as I mentioned one of my earlier episode. So they see themselves that I will be happy, right? This is what some of the women told me. I'll be happier if my children can further their education. Boys and girls, they can further their education and make it affordable. Okay. So a village women don't need help. They just need what? Enabling environment. And then the other thing is better bank. Most of, in fact, banks that would be willing to offer loans when women need loans. Loans with less, with smaller interest rate. Okay. So it's not, they don't need handouts. They just need what? Enabling environment. And lastly, fair trade. I hinted to this earlier about when they sell their produce, usually they sell it very cheaply. People take advantage of that. They need fair trade. And if people are really interested in working with village women, then they should be willing to be fair in the business. I understand that capitalism encourages us, right, to exploit, because that's how you become rich with capitalism. But I'm saying that if we truly want development in our communities, in African communities, right, or even in African diaspora, Black diaspora, we need to be fair with each other. This is not to suggest that we should just take less, right? But what I'm suggesting is that we should consider also our condition and work with each other, especially village women who are working very hard. And then if you want to help, right, since you want to help, then help by making sure that there's fair trade, as opposed to just handing somebody dashing things. And the other part of it is that what handouts or helping all the time, right? What it does is that it creates dependency. So there's a subset. Remember earlier I said someone in my village might say, well, that's Yokiam Bakima gonna make you, but they will say you're wrong, right? Because those people benefit from something they have not worked for. You see, you have not worked for that money, someone gave it to you. You have not worked for for a pack of soap, someone gave it to you, right? And so so there's this in sometimes, and then as you continue living or interacting with that person expects you to give at all times, because they know that you're kind, so they will exploit it. So it also becomes a culture of begging, a culture of expectation for handouts. But when you give people an enabling environment, like the village women who are smart and doing great things, then they will just do their thing and it gives human dignity. Okay, it gives you some dignity to live your life knowing that you are working for this amount, you're working for 8-9 hours a day, and you have what? you see the result of that work. And also, as Thomas Sankara said, I'm going to end with this. Africa cannot develop. Village communities, based off of my study, will not develop. They will not come up or rise up if we continue throwing things there and not building the infrastructure. So, as Thomas Sankara said, right, he who feeds you controls you. And village women are not interested in someone feeding them because they can feed themselves. They just need enabling environment. Okay. And I'll also cite a book. This comes actually, what the quote that I just cited comes from Thomas Sankara, who is a revolutionary from Burkina Faso. Some of you probably know of Burkina Faso of late because of Ibrahim Touré. But of course, prior to Touré, Thomas Sankara has been in Burkina Faso, which is one of the revolutionaries. He's been doing a lot of work there before he was, he was deleted, unfortunately. So I'll cite his work in the description, so if for those interested in knowing more about him. So again, thank you for your time for today. I hope you learned something from what I shared. Please, speaking of share, please make sure you share these podcasts with your friends, colleagues, whoever who you think students who you think they may find this useful, and also make sure that you put the notification bell so that you can get the notification every week, because I post every Tuesday. So again, thank you for your time. Nagode sosai. Ina fata kuna lafiya, who have a good evening. Well, it's evening here, so I'm saying have a good evening, but wherever you are, have a good rest of your day. Until then, say anjuma. Ndogo, as we say in my language.